Hello, hello. Welcome back to Evolve with E. I'm your host, E. Today we're wrapping up the Life Lessons Climbing a Mountain mini-series, and this for me drives it all home. It embraces this next chapter of my life and just puts a whole bow on what it is that I've learned up until this point in my life. So, jumping right into it, the lesson is that you can always come home to yourself. Once you figure out what brings you back home to yourself, it is always there. For me, it is connecting with nature, being in nature, knowing that I am inherently nature. Nature has always been something that's been a part of my life. I grew up in a small town. My backyard was the great outdoors, and I had trails in my backyard. I had ponds in my backyard, a creek, and because of it being such a small town, there's not a lot to do. And so I would find myself most of the time when I had a moment to sit in nature. I took that for granted. And then when I moved to college, I moved to the city, Pittsburgh, small city, big town. Regardless, moving to uptown Pittsburgh, then downtown Pittsburgh, I found myself disconnected from nature, disconnected from myself. And throughout my time in Pittsburgh, I eventually would find myself coming back to nature, coming back to these parts of the city, Shenley Park, North Park, a little bit further north, but then there's McConnell's Mills and Moraine State Park. I didn't discover that till later, but it got to the point where when I was in school, I would get in my car at the end of the day and my Apple Maps would say 19 minutes to Shenley Park, or 18 minutes to Shenley Park, 25 minutes to Shenley Park, because I would go there every day and it became such a routine for me. I'm a big routine bitch, but connecting to nature, coming home to myself, there's so much going on in my head and in my life at all points in time. Life is never ending. Life is not stopping. It doesn't stop for anybody. And for me, finding the moments in life, creating the moments in life where I feel able to come home to me are what ground me and center me. And we as humans need to touch grass. We need to be touching the earth. We need to be connecting to the earth. And it's so prevalent for me. I feel like I'm one of the people where I'm just super duper sensitive to a lot of different things. And that just means that I need to consciously come back to these things, that basic human needs, like whole foods and touching grass and getting sunlight and movement and just the basics. When I return to the fundamental basics, that's when I feel like I'm returning home to myself. When I'm taking care of my body as the vessel that she is, that I'm taking care of my mind through taking care of my body. I'm creating a safe place for my brain to be in because my body is happy. She's not sounding the alarm all the time, trying to get me to pay attention to her, to take care of her like the basic human that I am. This is funny because it's something that I forget. I forget that I am just a human sometimes. And I obviously, we're so much more than like just a human, but I forget that that's the foundation. And that it's very hard to achieve everything else in life if I'm not taking care of myself as a fucking human. So, tangent. I tangent. It's okay. Coming back to my point. Let me find it. I found myself lucky enough to work remotely for a small period of time. And when I did that, I would like load up my work backpack with my laptop, a hammock, enough stuff to sustain me for the day. And at the beginning of the day, I would hike into a park or the forest, set up in a hammock, open up my laptop, connect to the hotspot on my phone, work remotely all day in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nature, surrounded by nature. And that's honestly, that was such a good setup for me. That worked for me. And it made me remember who I am and what I'm doing and what really matters. And it kept me from getting too emotionally involved and wrapped up in the small day-to-day mundane shit because I was just in nature and reminded that I'm a human being. This nature exists. It's so hard to give a shit about anything else. Any of the little Microsoft Outlook when you're like reminded that I'm a human. That's how I feel. So I knew this fact about myself very deeply. I knew this fact about myself. I need to be connected to nature. I need to be in nature in order to just fundamentally be okay. I realized that when I'm going through it, I just need to go touch grass. That solves 80% of my problems. My nervous system, chills the fuck out when I can just put my foot on the earth. Better yet, running water, let me take a bath in the creek. I will hop right in. Just be one with nature. And it just reminds me that I'm a human and I'm okay. It saves me when I lose myself and just resets me completely. And I know this fact about myself, and I'm so lucky to know this fact about myself. And even though I know this fact about myself, I forget. I once had this brilliant conversation with an old friend of mine where he would talk about when he was going through transitional periods of his life, or even just as he's moving through life, he has his pillars. And I think got this from somewhere, or if he didn't, he's brilliant. Either way, wonderful guy. But he talks about his pillars and how when he is moving through anything in life, he has to come back to his pillars in order to remind himself who he is. And these are his pillars of identity. The one that I remember the most is just running. Running was a pillar of his identity. It was how he connected with himself. It was how he moved his body. It was how he connected with his body. And it was a way for him to regulate. And so he just ran all the time. He loved it. And I love it for him. He still runs. When I think about these pillars and I think about that structure and that concept of knowing who you are and having such a solid foundation in who you are that you know what your pillars are, when you're able to come back to that, you are able to go through these different transitions more gracefully because you have the foundation of who you are laid and you're able to come back to the things that make you feel like you. For me, it's weightlifting. It's being outside in nature, touching grass, being in sunlight. It's listening to familiar music that makes me feel like me, that reminds me and creates a familiar state of being, but in a good way, that it's just like, this is me. This song makes me feel like me. This song makes me dance. This song makes me happy. This song makes me joyful. This movement makes me joyful. This movement makes me feel alive. And when I feel alive and I feel connected to myself and my body and my mind and my soul and everything quiets that's on the external, that's when I feel like me. When I'm able to quiet the external to really go within myself and find me, that's when I feel the most like me, obviously. And I find myself knowing my pillars, but then sometimes still not coming back to them even when I know them. This came up for me when I moved to California. I forgot the pillars of who I was. I threw myself into work. I abandoned myself completely. I abandoned my weight training. I abandoned my walks. I abandoned my sunshine. I moved to California and I abandoned my sunshine? The fuck? I'm like in an office all day and pretending I'm happy and just so caught up in the grind and the hustle and like the attitudes of the people around me, and I just abandoned myself, lost myself completely. I walked away from the pillars. And without my pillars, without my foundation, my structure, I crumbled. And then I had the audacity to wonder why the universe was pushing me to take steps in a different direction. It's because it was the universe trying to pull me home to myself and me so desperately wanting to not acknowledge the fact that I walked away from what I was and who I knew that I am and who I know that I am. And not just that I am, because who I am is allowed to change. Because who I am does change. But it's that regulation, it's that self-identity that is structured around what makes me feel like me. Not saying that every single time I come back to that it's the exact same state of being, but it's something that quiets the external enough that I'm able to figure out what it is that I am right now, who it is that I am right now. It's a way for me to quiet the external, and I abandoned that completely and got so caught up and lost in the external. And so these life lessons from hiking mountains have been coming back to me slowly because of that Yosemite trip. The one trip that started me off on this was so powerful because it reminded me of who I was, of who I am, of what makes me feel like me. Being disconnected, turning off the work phone, I was lucky enough to start to feel that separation and that distance from work at that point in time. That was the beginning transitional point where I was starting to phase out. That transition, that break was starting to happen. I gave myself permission to not give a fuck. I gave myself permission to turn it off. And for the first time in 6 months, I gave myself permission to turn the work brain off. And in doing that, guess who was waiting there for me? Me. I was waiting there for me. Once I was able to turn that off, realize that, I strayed from myself. That I knew that change was coming and that I was going to be coming back to myself. And then I did, and it was this whole unraveling of what I thought was reality because it was a reality that I created based on the external and not based on me, which is why it had to crumble and why I'm so grateful that it crumbled. And I keep coming back to that, but it's so true. May anything that's not for me be removed from my life, and may the things that are for me just fall right into fucking place. And I will tell you what, ever since I started having those types of conversations, I have honestly, I swear, I have never felt more fulfilled by the people around me, by the relationships that I'm building, by the things that I'm able to do now because I'm taking the time to sit with what actually aligns with me. I cleared space, and oh my God, the blessings are coming in. I geek. I will geek. Give me a sec. I feel so blessed. I feel so lucky. My heart feels so full in ways that don't feel forced. I gave myself the permission to surrender, and the blessings that have started to flow in, holy fuck, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for the connections. I wasn't ready for the relationships, and I was not ready for the love that I feel for being who I am. And it was reconnecting with nature and reconnecting with myself that allowed me to get to that point. And it was realizing that I'm always there. When I do get distracted, because God knows it's not a linear path, and I will fuck up, I will step off, I will get distracted. It's not a matter of not doing that. It's a matter of creating a life where not only will the people around me check me, but I'm creating that space to check myself. Is this aligned? Is this what I want in my life? Am I being myself in my life? Am I me? Does this feel like me? And like I said, I do that in nature. I stick my feet in a creek and I'm like, clock it. And I write it down. Oh, there's a bug. No, it's a hair. We're good. I digress. I got distracted. As we do. It's a matter of cultivating your environment, your brain, your life in a way where the people lovingly support you and encourage you to be living in what feels the best for you. What is the best for you? Well, because this is also tricky. The people around you are very important because they can either support you and enable you in ways where maybe it actually isn't in your best interest that they're encouraging you to do something. Maybe you're pursuing something that isn't in your best interest. That's where the people around you are so important to be able to check you and be like, is this actually what you want? Is this actually good for you? And there's a lot more to be said about that. But I'm going to go into it as a whole episode in and of itself. Because it sort of relates to the last one, but it also is about knowing what you want and then how to create that environment to support that, which is a digression. Well, it's kind of like when you realize that everything is a mirror. When you realize the people around you, what value, that's it. It's realizing your values, realizing what matters to you, and then surrounding yourself with people with similar shared values. Because if you step off your path and somebody's lovingly able to hold you accountable for that, that is such a blessing. And it also takes work from both sides for people to know when somebody that you care about is acting a little out of character. And yes, people are allowed to change, but that's where I kind of think it comes down to like the values and holding yourself accountable, but also being able to have conversations about it. Like, hey, I know this is a value of yours. I've seen you doing this lately. Like, do you want to talk about it? I want to hold up this reflection for you. If you're unaware you're doing this, like, hey, this might not be in alignment with what you said that you wanted. I like to have those kind of conversations with the people I'm around. Check me, call me. I can sometimes not be aware of the things that I'm doing until I see the mirror held back up. And that's where, again, it's important to create that relationship with yourself where you're able to clock your own shit. To me, the key to self-awareness is creating the time to sit with yourself. And that's one thing that I find myself not doing. It is a big habit of mine to distract myself from sitting with myself until I'm in nature and then it all hits me at once. And it's something I'm getting better at. As I become more aware of it and more aware of when I'm doing it, then I'll pull it back. But like I mentioned, I'm not always aware that I'm doing something until I'm doing it. That's also a big thing of mine, is that once you become aware and it becomes an intentional choice, that's when you have the power to choose differently. Some things are ingrained so deeply. And if you don't realize you're doing it, then how are you supposed to change it? When you do realize, when you catch yourself about to make a decision out of alignment with you, that might be a default, but you become aware that you're about to do it, that's when you're presented with the opportunity to make that choice to show up differently. Going back to the Yosemite trip and how that was like the turning point for me for realizing that I had gone way too far into the work mode and hadn't created a real outside work balance for myself here. I realized why I was so miserable all the time. Like, it had gotten to the point where I was crying every day. I was crying every day as I would sit and try to work, as I would sit and try to figure out what to do for work. The environment was so icky, and I wanted out so bad. And I didn't give myself permission to acknowledge that I wanted out so bad until I was given the out. It was actually really funny. You know how I said, like, the people in your environment will hold that mirror up for you? I was able to call myself out on my shit because of conversations I was having with my boyfriend, where we were talking about our values and we were talking about the things that were important to us. And as I found myself out loud saying what was important to me, it was so obvious how my actions were not supportive of what I was saying. He didn't directly call me out on it, but he held up the mirror. And when I looked in that, I was like, wow, I'm saying this. I'm doing this. These are my values, and I'm acting so out of alignment with my values. No wonder I'm so miserable all the time. No wonder I feel so uneasy, that I feel so on edge, that I feel so disconnected from myself. I am disconnected from myself. I'm not acting in alignment with my values. Like, holy fuck. And then once I was aware of that, that's when I started to show up differently. Turn off the phone after a certain point in time. Set specific boundaries. I'm not going to attend our Sunday night calls anymore. Can we reschedule them to Monday nights? Because I don't want to attend a work call at 8 p.m. on a Sunday. The fuck? What? Right. Anyways, part of that misery was just the constant mind chatter. Because I felt like I couldn't turn it off. When I tried to talk about expected work hours, I was met with, you're on call 24/7. If the customer reaches out and needs to get a hold of you, you need to be responding. My nervous system doesn't relax in that. I don't want that. And I didn't know how to say, I don't want that. I didn't know how to walk away from that. And realizing that I just needed to walk away, period, was hard. Because of the constant mind chatter, I felt so stuck. I felt so lost. I felt so caught up in trying to make it what I wanted it to be, that when I was in the hike and I'm up against the voices in my head, I realize, not schizophrenic, like the one that's saying, like, slow down, you can't do this, and the other one that's saying, just breathe deeper and focus on your step and keep going. Those voices, when I was realizing the duality of that and the fact that both can exist at the same time, I realized that both the voice that says, I want to keep going, and the voice that says, I need to take a break, applied not only to, like, physical, but then, like, the mental work too. Realizing that I could quiet the mind chatter. How do I want to say this? It brought me back to knowing that I do have control over the chatter in my head. And knowing that if I don't have control necessarily over the exact chatter in my head, I have tools that turn the volume down. And those tools were the pillars that I had walked away from in order to be the employee that I thought that I should be, in order to show up the way I thought I should show up, in a way that was super unsustainable for me. Throughout this hike, it was when I was really giving myself permission that it was time to move on. When I decided, it felt like my soul just reached back out and gave me a hug. That's a little bit of a weird way to describe it. There's this scene, it's in some Marvel shit, I think. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Where it's like, the woman has her hand out, and then, like, the black shadow hand, like, comes out from under it, holds the hand, and then, like, it flips, and then, like, as it flips, it, like, becomes the other hand, and it's like this, like, transition of, like, the shadow, like, slipping out, and then, like, she becomes a shadow. It was a little bit like that, but, like, a good feeling where it was like my soul was just like, oh, bitch, we're so back. We're so back. A, it brought me closer to myself, and B, in that moment, I forgave myself for straying from myself. I realized what I had been doing. I realized why I had been doing it. And I realized that the only path back to me was back to me, back to my foundation, and back to my pillars. In that process of walking back home to myself, it felt like truly coming home. I had a lovely conversation today with some friends, and my one friend asked me, what is this next chapter of your life called? And I thought it was A, such a beautiful question, and B, it felt so perfectly aligned with what I'm saying here, because this next chapter is called Coming Home. That's a really big thing for me, is coming home to myself. This past chapter was surrendering, letting go of the things that I thought that I wanted and making space for what is me, what is truly mine. And part of coming home is accepting who I truly am, who I always have been and who I've been trying so hard not to be, who I've been running from. All of it. All of it. I accept myself as I am. My grief, my love, my regret, my shame, my joy, my compassion, my kindness, my heart, my soul. I accept it. I love it. I embrace it fully because it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. But I am made perfectly Elise. I am perfectly me. And I'm so proud to be me. And it's part of realizing there's nobody else like me that makes me so happy. To be on this planet and to be here doing this type of work and to be doing this for not only myself but my community and the people who resonate with this type of work and this type of experience and this type of journey. We all deserve to come home to ourselves. We all deserve to feel at home in our bodies. It's the only home you'll ever truly have. Yes, you can create a physical home around you, but I feel like that physical home is just the external manifestation of the inner home. You're the person who makes anything feel like home. You can have a house and it's not a home until you decide it's home, but until you show up as that home for yourself, for your emotions, for everything that you are, for you to provide that safe container and space for you to be you, that's home. I think what's really happening here for me is that it's my soul. Yeah, it's my soul. Nature is a way for me to reconnect with my soul. Like when I talk about reconnecting with myself, feeling in alignment with myself, it's not body me, it's not mind me, it's soul me. Because that's who I feel like I am. I am not my body. I am not my mind. I am my soul. My soul is here occupying this vessel. My body is the vessel and my mind is kind of like the interconnected, what's the word? I feel like there are different ways that like your body and your soul are connected, and then your mind and your soul are connected, but the mind sometimes facilitates between the body and the mind and the soul, and it's just this whole like, that's a digression. That's a digression. I don't know how to word that in a good way. But for me, it's about reconnecting with my soul. And all these different things that I do, the pillars of who I am are what connect me to my soul. And when I feel connected to my soul, when I am connected to my soul, everything in my life falls into place. When I'm connected to my soul, I understand. I feel like I learn and I show up not only better in my life, but as a better version of myself, as a more me version of myself. I don't regret things when I show up from a place of soul. I feel fulfilled. I feel alive. I feel like me. So my challenge to you is to do things from soul. Connect with your soul. Find it. Find them. Find her. Find him. Find your soul. Live through your soul. Figure out what that feels like. For me, it's like flow state. Anytime that I kind of get into a flow state, I know that I'm doing something soul-led. Whether it's creating, whether it's moving, creating from my mind, creating through like my mind body, or moving. I had a lovely suggestion from my boyfriend to do an episode on flow states, so that will also be an episode coming soon. I've been like adding them to the list. I have so much to record. I've been batch recording because I'm going to be like out of town and on the move for the next couple of weeks. So this all is coming out like a few weeks after it's been recorded. But I appreciate you all. I love you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time, attention, and energy. That is truly the most valuable thing you could give me. Besides like maybe a thumbs up and a 5-star rating. But the time, attention, and energy is truly appreciated. I don't have anything more to say about this, except take the time, connect to your soul, discover your values, and when you're able to act in alignment with your values and from a place of soul, for me, it's when my life feels the most fulfilling, when I'm happy to get up, when I'm happy to start a new day. Even if it's tough, I know what I'm doing is from a place of soul, and so the motivation is just fucking different. The inspiration is just fucking different. No matter how far you feel like you drift, your soul is always there to come back to if you take the time to intentionally sit and find it. Find the connection. Seek the connection. Carve out that intentional time and space to connect, and the universe sees that, and your soul will show up. So thank you for listening to the whole mini-series. I've learned a lot climbing a mountain. I'm actually off to go climb another mountain. So we'll see what I get from that. It won't be part of this mini series, but I know the downloads are going to hit and I'll be back with a fresh perspective and some stories to tell. So I'm excited. I look forward to seeing you again. It's going to be a while before I get to talk to you again, but you'll hear me on schedule. So in the meantime, be well, take care of yourself, stay safe out there, love yourself. Thank you so much for watching, like I said. I hope you have a day as beautiful as you are. It's been real. Bye.